We're now sending out copies of the agreement to our branches and reps. There was a reason why we couldn't send it out prior to that, because some of that is still linked to market announcements. So that's gone out as we're speaking, and we'll also be sending out a members communication that will give you a link to look at the whole agreement, and at the same time you'll get an overview of the agreement in a pamphlet that will come out, has gone out now, I think, as we're speaking. So look, a couple of weeks back, we went through with you all the reasons why we believed that we had to engage with EP Group and what we were looking for in that agreement. And that comes on the back of a mandate from our conference that set us the task, if you like, to engage, but also set us the parameters of what we should be looking for. And what we can say, and are pleased to say, that the Postal Executive have unanimously endorsed the agreement, and that what's in the agreement goes well beyond what we were set out to achieve. We know that there will be concerns about legitimate concerns about a foreign equity investor taking over Royal Mail, and let me make clear that we share those concerns, and that is why a union has to deal with the reality of privatisation, has to deal with that on your behalf, and why it is so important that we got in there and that we reached this agreement that addresses those concerns, but also gives us all an opportunity for a fresh start. I think it's also fair to say, and our members know this from their own experience, that the status quo is simply not sustainable. Carrying on with the current Royal Mail board, who have attacked the workers relentlessly, turned on their own workers, are failing customers on a daily basis, and have systematically run this company down, it is not where we need to be going forward. So, from our perspective, this is a really important moment, an important agreement. I can also say to you today that we've been involved throughout this process in direct discussions with the UK government, and when you see the agreement, it'll also have a summary of what the government's protections and the deed of undertakings that they've received from EP Group. And our view is simply this. The two agreements combined give us the best chance of rebuilding Royal Mail. We're going to go through the deal, and you'll see it. I think it's quite simply worded, very easy to follow. And we urge you at some point, obviously, to take a time out to read it. One of the first points I want to make is that the deal recognises, EP recognises, that the only way that we're going to rebuild trust in the leadership of this company is if there is a fresh start, is if there is a complete reset in employee and industrial relations, and if the management change the way they operate at all levels and in every workplace, and that's laid out very clearly in the agreement. There's a series of objectives laid out simply, which in themselves are commitments from EP Group. Then we get on to the position with legally binding protections. So you will know that following privatisation, we had a really important agreement that protected us from what normally happens when a company goes private. That lasted for 9 years. And the company, Royal Mail's board currently, decided to rip up that agreement as part of the assault on their own workers. We've restored the legally binding protections, so it will lay out very clearly that there will be no sell-off or break-up of any operational part of the existing company. There will be no outsourcing of any CWU represented grades or franchising of any part of the existing Royal Mail group. EP will not establish a separate Royal Mail branded or otherwise parcel company, and will pursue all growth opportunities through existing employees and the core business. An EP Group have confirmed they will not operate Royal Mail as a gig economy employer. There will be no recruitment of owner drivers into Royal Mail, and there will be no increase above the 25% of owner drivers already employed in Parcelforce. I'm going to say to you that by their very nature, legally binding agreements have review clauses and will always have an opportunity in circumstances where the very existence of the company is threatened for a company to withdraw from that type of agreement. This is no different in that sense, although I think it's a lot clearer written, and I want to be crystal clear on this point. There is no agreement about a no-strike deal. That was a question that was asked to us the other day. Absolutely categorically, we have not agreed that. In terms of a further section of the agreement, there's a whole section that is about resolving outstanding issues. And as part of that, the company, the prospective new owners, have agreed to completely overhaul the existing resourcing model, which has been utter chaos for some time. A major achievement for the CWU is that the principle has now been agreed that on a phased basis, we will remove the inferior terms and conditions of new entrants, and that will be replaced by a new career path. The first step of that removal will be agreed within 3 months of the transaction being completed. And we've also agreed that there needs to be a complete review of the over-reliance of agency workers in Royal Mail. And this is an opportunity to ensure that going forward, we reduce the reliance on agency workers. And as part of the resourcing model, EP Group have agreed to review overtime and scheduled attendance rates and to put in place ways of incentivising existing staff through additional earnings opportunities to actually help overcome the reliance on agency workers. There's also going to be a review of the sick pay arrangements with a view to introducing improved arrangements that will offer employees much more support than what they're getting now. There will be a new incentive scheme and we will engage workers. They've agreed to engage workers so that it is an incentive scheme that's achievable on the front line and that you will help jointly design. And as part of that, we've agreed with EP Group to review again the measures of efficiency. We don't believe that what Royal Mail say about efficiency is accurate, and we don't believe what they say in turn to the regulator is accurate, so we're going to review all of those things. There'll be a review of redundancy terms as a key measure to avoiding any compulsory redundancies. We're also going to pilot, and this is important, a new way of working. You'll see in the agreement that EP have agreed that it's time to look at a completely different way of working where frontline employees actually have a greater say and control over their operation, the operation in their office and how they manage their workload. And as part of that, we're going to look again at how the application My Performance is used. So that's going forward, it's used in a different way or a completely new way of looking at that. On USO reform, I want to make this point that on all of the things that we've agreed, also on pay, we've got an agreement with EP Group that there will be a pay deal no later than 3 months, backdated if necessary, after the transaction date. And it's not possible to agree a pay agreement at the moment because we've not also agreed USO reform beyond the pilot's approach, which Martin will take you through in a minute. And they've accepted, and this is crucial, that all of the timelines that you'll see in the agreement to resolve all of those issues with all the detailed negotiations that follow the agreed principles, they've accepted that that is the need to do that is conditional on us agreeing USO reform. So we've got a very strong position to now address the USO reform issues, knowing that all these things will be resolved first. When it comes to USO reform, we've also got an agreement with EP Group that the whole of USO reform, when we do eventually agree it, will be managed without any compulsory redundancies. And that is something that we're confident we can avoid, and we're confident going forward that providing we put the company in the right place and they respect all of these agreements, there will be no need for compulsory redundancy. So that's secured against one of the biggest changes that we're ever going to go through. Moving on, there's some stuff that we've said is groundbreaking. I think the legally binding protections meet that claim, and we did that once before. But we've agreed a completely new governance and business model to make sure that going forward, Royal Mail operates differently to how it has in the past. This will include changes that will be anchored in the articles of association of the company. So it means we're actually changing the way a private company operates. There's going to be a new advisory committee that's going to be set up that will involve EP Group, ourselves, and the senior management of Royal Mail, and everything that is a major decision for the company going forward will go through that advisory committee before it gets board approval. We've agreed that on the basis that we basically get 2 bites of the cherry. We're going to do it there, but at the same time, we've made absolutely clear in the agreement that that does not substitute in any shape or form our right to negotiate and collectively bargain on behalf of our members. So this in itself will be very different. We're going to meet, these meetings will take place on a monthly basis, and as part of engaging with the government, we will be inviting the government, EP and us, to meet in those meetings at least twice a year. On pension, sorry, let me carry on with that bit. Martin's just reminded me on something I should have mentioned. On the question of a mission statement as well, you'll see in there that we've reached agreement that Royal Mail will have a new mission statement that sets out what its purpose is, and this goes beyond what a normal private company does, which is there for the benefit primarily of shareholders, and it will now be about delivering quality of service, about growing the business, and making sure that one of Royal Mail's primary goals in the future is to add social value in our communities and economic value to the whole of the UK. We've also agreed that executive remuneration, where we've seen senior people who have gone, a lot of them, but some who are still there, continue to be rewarded for failure, will never happen again. There's a new framework that's going to be put in place for senior executive pay, and that framework will make them have to achieve bonuses based on achieving quality of service, based on growing the business, and based on taking into account the views of frontline employees and customers. So these are very important changes in the way that a private company operates. We've also reached an agreement on what will be known as an employee collective benefit trust. That will be set up within its own legal terms. That provides the opportunity for our members, if EP Group take a dividend, then we will get 10% of that dividend going into the trust. This is a very important principle, because if you go back to, you know, one of the things that we think absolutely damaged Royal Mail was when it chose to give that £650 million to the shareholders at the commencement of the cost of living crisis, and then pleaded poverty, that they had no money for pay. We'll always prioritise basic pay, but this is an important development. As part of that, something which, if you saw the press conference that we were talking about the other day, we've also agreed with EP that they cannot take. The government's got this assurance, and we've strengthened that assurance in our own agreement. They cannot take the pension surplus in any shape or form and take it up to the parent company. So, you know, what that means is some people are saying that the reason that they're buying Royal Mail is because of the pension surplus. Now, that surplus is huge. The amount of money that's there, subject to the agreement of the independent trustee board, and at the appropriate time, those schemes are now closed, but we will now get a share of that money, of those funds, and that will go into the Employee Collective Benefit Trust for us to determine with you, with EP Group, how that benefits you, and we also acknowledge that it may be necessary and the right thing to do if there was going to be reinvestment back into Royal Mail that protects and grows our jobs going forward. So that's an important win. We don't believe that that's been done previously. That is their money technically, and they've agreed to make sure that you get a benefit from that. And then finally, we've agreed with EP Group that there will be a new growth business plan within 6 months post the transaction, and the union will jointly design that in a way that's going to now seriously put some ambition back into Royal Mail to see if we can grow the business with the workforce being on board for that. I want to just finish by saying about the government involvement in this. This, for the first time, means with the government taking a golden share, with the government making sure that they will be at the meetings under the new governance structure of the company twice a year. This means for the first time since privatisation, a UK government has agreed an ongoing involvement in Royal Mail. And our view is that is a realistic and the best possible platform that if EP Group don't fulfil their promises, then we will argue at that point from a much stronger position for renationalisation. So look, we believe this is a really good deal. We urge you to look at it, and it is an opportunity now for a fresh start and a moment where we can start to think about rebuilding Royal Mail in a completely different environment.